Good morning, Sapulpa. It's Micah from Sapulpa Times.
And Lucy with the city of Sapulpa.
And welcome back, guys. It was a late night last night with the city council election. That was, it's funny because, like you were just talking about, the polls closed at 7,
Hmm.
and I think all of us are just kind of like just waiting to see what the results are going to be, like right at 7 o'clock, and it takes a little while to get those numbers in.
Hmm.
However, it was only precincts reporting in, and so it's like after an hour and 90 minutes goes by, I'm like, what's the problem? What are we waiting on?
That's one question we talked about last night. I was with a few people as we were watching and waiting for the results, and it was like, 7, 7:15, 7:45, 8:15, and you're still waiting. And so the question that I had was, all of that's electronic.
Hmm.
Like you
Well,
vote
for the most part,
electronic and all of that. And so I just was, so confused as to why that took so long.
with only when we're only talking about 4 precincts. I
Yeah.
mean, if it were like a bigger election, a state election that had more than one ward or something,
Yeah.
and so in April we may probably see that. I don't know how long it'll take, but
Yeah.
it, I mean, it's electronic. It is, but I know they have to do some hand counting and stuff before they can finalize the votes as well that Friday. So anyway, if you're just tuning in now to all of that, the city council election results from yesterday are pretty much as follows. There was a 3 vote difference between Elizabeth Nicholas, the incumbent, and Mike Harris, the closest challenger. 74 votes to 71 votes. And so if there had ever been a time where every vote counted, I mean, that would be it. I would think it's so those of you who think that you don't need to vote because your vote doesn't count anyway, I think that just goes to show that that's really not the case. But so the bottom line is Nicholas and Harris are going to be going to a runoff in April 7th, which will also be the same election for wards 3 and 5 that it'll be happening then. So there's going to be an even bigger contest happening in a couple of months, and we will keep you guys in the loop on what's going on there. And we have had some interesting developments come out as a result of some of this stuff, starting with some new information that we got yesterday from regarding some mailers that went out and some interesting confusion, I guess, surrounding like precincts. And anyway, we're going to be talking to the county election board to get more information for that. So you guys be staying tuned to Sapulpa Times. We'll be getting you more information for that as we get it. But the bulk of today's show is going to be dedicated to talking about the geo bond because we feel like, at least I feel like, judging by what we're seeing on Facebook, especially, that I think a lot of people might be making their decision on voting based on the geo bond because there's a lot of uh, misconceptions, some false assumptions, maybe some correct assumptions that are going on about the nature of the geo bond and what happened. Now, the funny thing is, it's weird that we're talking about this now because I mean, it's about over. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the geo bond is winding down in terms of all the projects that we're working on. But I guess let's just get into it. So we'll start with the first question: is what are geo bonds used for, Lucy?
So I got some notes with me, so I'm gonna read some of them. I was able to talk with Joan Riley, our city manager, and kind of get some of these questions answered specifically because with Dewey just being completed and everything, like Micah said, there was a lot of misconception. So, geo bonds are a general obligation bond, and these are to fund specific capital projects. So these are capital project is a project outside of our ability to fund on sales tax. Um, and so each proposition that is on a bond lists exactly what we will build or purchase. And so I know that specifically has brought up some questions that we will answer as we continue to go through this. But if it's listed in the proposition, that is what that money is for. So then our voters will approve the projects that are listed. And then the city attorney as well as our financial advisors will work together for bonds and things like that.
Okay, so kind of on that same note, specifically talking about Proposition 1,
Hmm.
because some of what we've seen on social media, folks were like, hey, we didn't get to vote on what the downtown was going to look like. If we had known what it was going to look like, we might have voted differently.
Hmm.
So you and I were talking about the nuances involved and what that vote actually pertained to and what it didn't pertain to. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so Proposition 1, which is the proposition that would have directly affected downtown, the verbiage in that, which was specific, stated that the city of Sapulpa was asking for your vote in order to fund the creation of a downtown or central district master plan.
Right,
And so a master plan, we have a downtown master plan. We also have an edge district master plan, which is something else. But the downtown master plan was created. It was a 2-year project. The proposition and the approved vote actually funded that. And so with that master plan, we hosted some meetings and things like that, and we received feedback from our stakeholders as well as the community. We held a couple of these events, and those meetings had about 150 people sign into each of those meetings. And so at those meetings, it was an open forum where we took, again, we took opinions and what the community wanted to see in that. And so we drafted, created, and finalized a master plan. And then that went to council, and council reviewed that, and then ultimately council voted to approve and adopt the created master plan.
right. And that was an expensive endeavor. I mean, that cost a lot of money to do that, right?
Yes, so I'm not sure exactly the dollar amount of the master plan. I was going to get that, and I did not.
That's okay.
Um, but it was about 250,000, so around there. And so we took that project, and once you create a master plan, in order to execute a master plan, you get action steps. And so in that master plan, we've seen some people say, Proposition 1 did not include upgrade infrastructure. That is correct. It was not written into the proposition. However, it was in the master plan. So once that master plan was created, adopted, and executed, if you review our downtown central district master plan, it specifically states that infrastructure upgrades, resurfacing, widening, and updating downtown, creating a walkable, inviting, usable space in our downtown district.
Okay. And that's what was accomplished.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what we got. So it wasn't like folks voted for one thing and got something else.
Correct.
So, okay, so the next question here is, not that this has ever happened that I'm aware of. Actually, it may have happened. We're going to talk about that specifically, but some folks seem to be under the assumption that if you draw down all this bond money and we don't use it all, that then that can in turn be applied to just a project that's at the city council discretion, at the city manager discretion. So what happens to leftover bond money whenever that, if that ever
Yeah,
happens?
so very, very rare. If there are leftover funds, um, okay, so 70% of the money, absolutely 1000% has to go to exactly what the proposition states.
Okay,
70%,
70%.
no questions asked.
Okay.
If there is, for some reason, that something is left over, that money has to be allocated to a project that is related.
Like another project in the proposition or
No. So, example that I received from Joan is that if there is a bridge project stated, listed in the proposition, and it is approved, so then you use 80% of your proposition funds for that bridge. If you have a remaining 20%, then that 20% only can be used to enhance that bridge with other things that were not listed,
okay,
but it has to be directly related to that bridge, or it could be applied to another bridge project.
another bridge project.
But it
Okay.
has to be very related.
So it's not as though if the funding came in for that bridge, it didn't cost as much as they thought that they could take that and build a parking lot or
Yeah.
uh, a downtown
No.
something with it. Okay.
So I guess a good example of that would be, say Proposition F was for our sports complex. So say we didn't use all of that, we could not take any of those leftover funds and add them to Proposition 1 for downtown district.
Okay.
It would directly be related to that sports complex, or we have the fields at Kelly Lane Park.
Yeah.
And so if there was any leftover funds there, that is directly related as it is the same style of field. It is a sports complex. It could be used to enhance those fields.
Gotcha. Okay. I think that's enlightening. That's illuminating. That helps a lot. A lot. Okay, so the next question on that is kind of related and also kind of related to what you were talking about earlier. So, one of the things that you'll see a lot of people say when they are against a geo bond, especially when we're talking about, and a large portion of the geo bond that we had in 2020 were dedicated towards things like streetlights, some street repair, resurfacing, things like that. Now, as anybody who pays taxes knows generally,
Hmm.
that we've already got a street taxes. I mean, we've
Hmm.
got a certain portion of our taxes that go to paying for our streets anyway. And so people would say, well, you're just double taxing us and you're taxing us again for something we already do. So what's the reality in that?
So the the geo bond is funded through a completely separate revenue. And so geo bonds are funded through property taxes, and so therefore it will tax your property taxes, which are already paying to the county, and so then the city will actually get a portion of that at that point. Whereas our typical street fund, which is put into our budget each fiscal year, is paid for by taxpayer dollars. Not It is taxpayer dollars, but it is like a sales tax.
Right.
So anyone that visits town, stays in town, eats in town, buys groceries in town. And so they are two separate revenues, but so it would depend. I mean, if you lived here and you bought things here, then you would feel as if you're being taxed twice. However, a geo bond is for capital projects only, that the city cannot fund through our typical budget. Um, and so we have a street repair fund, and that includes, potholes and if signage falls down, putting that back up and clearing streets and things like that. But specifically the intersection at Highway 117 and 66. Sorry, I had to think about it for a second. Over here by the TP Drive-In. And so that was a complete, they did infrastructure, they widened it, they resurfaced it, they curbed and guttered it. They ran some stormwater.
Are you talking about the Ozark Trail
Yes,
extension that they did? Okay.
yes.
Ozark Drive or whatever.
And
Yeah,
then they also added in a signal. I believe it was updated. There might have been some form of signal there.
it was. Yeah.
And so they updated that. And so that is something that with our sales tax revenue that the city operates on, we could have not paid for that.
Okay. In fact, you and I were talking about this yesterday, and like the what it cost to do that
Mhm.
was actually more than our city's entire street repair budget
Yes,
or whatever, right? Is that right?
that's correct.
Okay.
So
So
I do not have our actual numbers for what our financial obligation is to that fund, but I can get those to you. But they are published in our public budget.
yeah, okay. So you're basically it showed the necessity of a geo bond for something like that. It's
Mhm.
not, hey, it's otherwise the city would be having, or city council would be having to make a decision. It's like, okay, do we want to do this or do we
Mhm.
want to fix a pothole over on
Right.
a certain street? And so that's why we had geo bonds, just for improvements like that. So we're not using geo bond money to patch a pothole.
No.
Sounds like. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next question, and this is the last one I have on the list here.
Okay.
Um, a lot of people now, and we may talk about this just a little bit more because I think we've got some misunderstandings about how this works. But people are asking about a bond being a debt on the city. I remember when we had the big meeting with Zach Robinson, who, and actually this was for the school, if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
This wasn't for the city downtown stuff. But a question was like, is it possible that like a geo bond could bankrupt the city, or what happens if it doesn't get paid? Do they come and repossess our downtown or something? What happens there? So, anyway, can you help bring some clarity to that about the question: Is a geo bond like this, is it a debt on the city, and what happens as a result of that?
Okay, so for this one, I'm going to read directly what Jonah has given me because I didn't know the answer
Okay,
myself. And so, yes, geo bonds are a form of city debt. They are repaid in a structured and predictable way. Payments come from the millage collected through property taxes, and so that's the number that we kind of talk about that goes up and down, and we try to keep it very level. Um, Most geo bonds are paid off with anywhere between 10 and 25 years. And then cities will stagger bonds so that way the taxpayers experience a steady, manageable mill levy, and there's no large um, fluctuation. So, um, once the bond is secured, then our city attorney and our financial advisor, which is outside of the city, so whoever we are getting that bond from, they work together, and bonds are sold at a predictable rate and things like that. And so we get the bond and then we negotiate it. And then once we have the money and where we are, then we sell them back. And
right.
so, um, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think on the same, going back to the school, part of what I wanted to bring up here is there seems to be some folks who think that the school bond is something that the city is in charge of or has a hand in, and that city council voted on. And this is kind of an aside to that, but I wanted to bring that back around to clarify to everybody that the school bond and the city council, even though they're like less than a mile apart from each other, they are not related. They're two completely different bonds. Both were voted on and passed by the city, or by the voting body that represents each one. But you had said that somebody had made
Mhm.
allusion to the city council voting to continue putting the city in debt first with the 2020 geo bond and then with the
Mhm.
multi-million-dollar school bond, which is big. I mean, I'm not going to
Mhm.
lie, but the city council didn't have anything to do with that.
No, that's correct. I think that is a misconception of like, because we are the county seat, we have the county courthouse and stuff here. And so county extends much more than just Sapulpa. And then the school, they are there. We are three different entities. And so therefore, if the county goes into debt, that is county debt. And if you live in the county and in the city of Sapulpa, then, I mean, you do have an opinion, you do have a vote for both of those things. Same thing if you live in Creek County, but you're also in Sapulpa City or Sapulpa school districts. Like you have a vote to both of those things, but they're still completely unrelated. We don't share budgets. We don't share money other than a little bit of property taxes from the county goes to city funding and to the school. And so we are three very, very different things.
Yeah, different institutions. And you're right to say they're not related in the sense that the city council had no influence over the school project. However, I mean, I will point out from a practical standpoint, the new high school, the PAC, that is undoubtedly going to be a benefit to the entire city.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's important to keep those things in mind when you're considering whether or not to vote for those things as to how they'll affect the city as a whole. But it is also, you have to keep in mind who's responsible for what. So
Mhm.
we do have somebody in with a comment here. I'll bring this up and we'll see if you have an answer.
Mhm.
It wasn't something we talked about before, so
Okay.
may not know, may have to get back to you on this. And that is a terrible, let me, that you can't hardly read it. Let me see if I can get the text back there better. 1 second here, guys. Paul Ferris is commenting on, and he said, "How was the East Dewey project funded?" And so, what I think he is talking about there is the road repaving and stuff that happened on the backside of Holmes Park Elementary to Dewey, all the way up to Boyd, and
Mhm.
widening that street and stuff. Was that part of the Geo Bond, or was that part of the regular street project, or do you know?
No, that was a project in Proposition 1 for the Geo Bond.
Okay.
And so that was widening, surfacing, curb, gutter, and stormwater placement.
Okay. All
Hmm.
right. And yeah, he provided a little bit of additional context there. East Dewey Street, 1400 block. That's what that was. So that was funded by Proposition 1. So
Hmm.
there's your answer, guys. And if any of you guys ever have questions about this stuff, Lucy and I sit together a few times a week usually. And so we're always happy to talk with her. And the city has been very open and transparent about all of this. It's all public record. Um, I mean, it was a 5-year project, which is funny enough that we're talking about it now because it's winding down. But I mean, this was all open. I mean, we were happy to answer the questions whenever we had them. So if you guys have questions about this, especially as we continue to get into the election season, and I know that a lot of you guys have these things on your mind um, for that, then feel free to continue to send us your questions, and we'll be happy to talk to who we need to in order to get the answers that you guys are looking for. So,
Okay. So one thing that I will say, because I just got the numbers, I think Joan may be watching us right now because she did send me an email with the budget numbers. So in the fiscal year 2025 to 2026, we budgeted $4 million for all of Streets projects.
okay,
And so the bond for Proposition 1, which was major streets, it had four different projects. Those projects were 49th and 117, 117 and 66, the widening and resurfacing major project at East Dewey down to Mayfield,
the one you just talked about.
and then the downtown master plan. And so that proposition, hold on, let me pull my
Didn't that also include the alleyway redesign?
alleyway redesign was in the master plan.
Okay,
So it funded the master plan. And so the general obligation bond was a total of $40 million. Um, and the, hold on, Mike, I'm looking for your text message because I sent you that. Um, okay, right here. So Proposition A was for a total of $10 million, almost $11 million.
okay. So, and you just said the entire budget for the entire year
Mhm.
of the street department is 4.
Four.
Okay, so
And that is significantly higher. So it's actually raised over the last few years. So to put that in perspective, um, in 21 and 22, we only spent $336,000.
336,000 in 2021 to
Mhm.
2022. Okay. Wow, that is a difference.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Sheesh. Didn't realize that.
So,
Goodness. What is that? A new
um,
pothole or something?
and then in the year 24 to 25, we spent $1.5 million.
Okay, and so it was more than double that for the following year.
Yes.
Okay, so that goes to prove the city is allocating considerable resources towards street repair and
Mhm.
maintenance. And of course, COVID was the thing. The price of everything went up, so we're having to deal with that like everybody else is. But yeah, it's obviously something the city council is paying attention to.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Joan. If you're watching, thanks for coming in real quick with the answers there. So that was good. So anyway, you guys continue to send us your questions. You can email them to us, send us on Facebook, something like that. We'll be happy to reach back out to the city, get the answers you guys are looking for. We're going to continue our election coverage over the next several weeks as we get into the runoff and the general elections for wards 3 and 5 as well. And I do want to encourage everybody, first of all, if you are not registered, go get registered. If you've moved recently, and in fact, if you need to probably just double check, log in, find out where your precinct is, because we did hear some reports about some folks who weren't aware that the districts had been redrawn. They thought that they were allowed to go vote yesterday. Turned out they were not. And which probably means also that there were some folks that could have voted yesterday that did not. So we only had 206 people vote yesterday. It's not a lot. I don't know how many people are in Ward 1, but I bet it's more than that. And so You guys, if you want to have your vote count and make your voice heard, make sure that you're doing what you got to do in order to make that happen. Okay. All right. So stay tuned in with us. We will see you guys again on Friday for Free Coffee Friday. Thanks for tuning in to the Time Loop Live, where we talk about all things happening in the town that we love. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you in a couple of days.
Bye.
Bye bye.